exercising discrimination.
I realised when I was young that I'd inherited from my mother's very keen sense of smell, that this helps no end. And my grandfather had the other.
And that development through nature eventually leads to more refined judgments of taste, more discerning discrimination, where we might go from fashion and food all the way up to fine works of music and literature and art.
Then you give it a good swallow, make sure you don't spattering the finger tasters. You get a pleasant aroma of plums and spices, and a tiny whiff of vanilla.
David Hume thought that when we are appreciating everything from dishes and food to fashions to works of art, classical music, we're always exercising judgment of taste. But is this just a metaphor? Can we really classify all of those experiences as experiences of the same type? I went to see Samir Zeki at University College London. He's been looking at beauty from the perspective of neurobiology.
I think it's human for assessment and mistake. Something abstract. He says that objects to the organs.
Samir has been looking at what parts of the brain are active when we appreciate beautiful things. He puts his subjects in a scanner and sees which parts of the brain are most active.
What you see is the extent of the blood flow, which is an image. Okay. Those stimuli which they have rated as the activity has stopped, and parts of the brain which are active when people experience beauty, regardless of the musical, visual, or psychical state. And it's always correlated with activity of the same part of the emotional brain in the medium point. In that sense, one can say that humophoretic. And by the way, I actually think that if the human language was updated, it would be writing to neurobiologists. What is prevalent is that activity when you experience something that's pleasant, and when you experience something that's beautiful, occurs in the same part of the brain, and pleasure and beauty have been strongly linked in previous discussions of beauty.
Some people worry that neuroscience is reducing beauty to an activity in our brains. Perhaps what Samir Zeki has shown is only that we take pleasure when we attend to beautiful things. But Hume was trying to solve the problem. If beauty was something that had to demand a subjective response from individuals, how could it be more than just an individual's liking or preference or particular subjective response? And for that, he tried to solve the problem by saying there's such a thing as a standard of taste. So it's not just an individual subjective, peculiar and idiosyncratic judgment. So standard of taste would say, by the standards of what counts as beautiful, we can classify works of some artists or musicians or writers as better or worse, as meeting the standard or failing to meet the standard. Now, the question is, what constitutes the standard? Where do we get the standard from? The standard of taste has